In the moment, two security guards humiliated a black Marine in front of his son's entire graduation. 6 Navy SEALs rose to their feet, eyes sharp, fists clenched, ready for battle. It was supposed to be a day to remember. The kind of day a father waits his whole life for. The stage glowed under soft lights. The auditorium buzzed, packed with proud families, all waiting for one name. The name of a child they loved, marching across the stage into a new chapter. But before that name was called, every eye in the room turned to one man. He didn't stand out, didn't make a sound, just sat quietly, in a dark blue Marine Corps uniform. A medal rested over his left chest, and in his left hand, he held a worn photograph, a young woman holding a baby boy in her arms, his wife, the woman who once promised to sit beside him on this day, had death not come for her first. Then, 2 shadows moved in. School security, black shirts, cold stares. They didn't say, "Excuse me," didn't ask, "Sir, do you have a ticket?" They just said, "Stand up. This isn't your seat." Solomon reached into his coat, pulled out his ticket, held it steady. No words, no fear, no movement. But they didn't even look. One guard stepped forward, yanked his arm, hard. The photo flew to the floor, face down. Cold tile met the face of the woman he loved. The other leaned in, just loud enough for half the row to hear. "This section isn't for people like you. Go to the back where you belong." Silence. The kind of silence that presses into your skin. Then came the whispers, soft, like wind before a storm. Phones lifted, lenses zoomed in. The spotlight hit row 3, as if the whole world had just woken up to a moment no one could believe was real. Solomon didn't move, didn't shout, didn't argue. He just knelt, picked up the photo with both hands. His fingers trembled, but his eyes burned, not with rage, but with something deeper, a flame that refused to go out. And then, one man stood, then another, and another, until 6 men rose from the crowd. No signal, no words, just unity and purpose, and the unshakable code of those who've seen war and know when it shows up in peace. His steps were slow, but each one heavy, like he carried a lifetime of battles on his back. Solomon Drayton pulled into the far end of the parking lot. The afternoon sun poured down, turning the cracked asphalt into ripples of molten steel. His car, a silver-gray Dodge Charger, came to a quiet stop. It was Ava's favorite. The one she used to say made her feel like they were invincible. Today, it had just carried him more than 8 hours from Temple, Texas. He could have flown, but he didn't. Because on the way back to their son, he wanted to ride with her memory beside him. He opened the glove box. Inside, wrapped in years of silence, was a faded photograph. Avenue holding a newborn, wrapped in a Marine blanket. Tyron, now 18, graduating today. "We'll watch him walk that stage together," she once promised. But Ava was gone, and Solomon was here to keep that promise. He entered the auditorium with the gait of someone who had long since grown used to weight. Not just the weight of gear and duty, but of memory, of vows made under the hush of hospital rooms and military base nights. His boots clicked softly on the polished wood floor, each step a quiet echo of discipline, of service, of sacrifice. Inside, the air buzzed with celebration. Music played, applause broke out, lights danced across rows of proud parents and excited students. But amid the joy and color, a few eyes turned, not with welcome, but with caution, curiosity, a hint of fear. A black man, in uniform, alone, a presence they didn't expect, and maybe didn't want. Solomon didn't flinch. He was used to it. Those stares, in airports, coffee shops, post office lines, eyes that didn't ask questions, but handed down silent verdicts. He made his way to row 3, left side. No usher, no greeting. But he wasn't here to be acknowledged. He was here to honor a promise. And the moment he sat, something subtle shifted, something deep, unseen but real, like the first tremor beneath a calm lake. Some slaps don't need hands, just a look, loaded with judgment, in a room that's supposed to be sacred. Solomon sat still, hands resting gently on his knees. Inside the left pocket of his coat, the photo of his wife and son remained, close to his heart. That's when they appeared. 2 men in black polo shirts walking down the aisle, eyes scanning, radios clipped to their ears. The logo on their chests read, Harlan Security. They didn't glance left or right, didn't check names, didn't ask anyone else. They had one target. Solomon. The shorter, stockier one stopped at his side. "Excuse me, sir," he said, voice flat, mechanical. "You're in the wrong seat." Solomon didn't respond, just calmly pulled out his ticket, held it up. Clear as day. Family seating. Row 3 left. The taller guard leaned in, glanced. "We've got orders." Didn't bother reading it. Solomon didn't flinch, didn't blink. "It was full when I sat down too. Who gave that order?" Silence. The tall one shrugged, dismissive, casual. "Let's not make this harder. There's extra seating in the back." Then suddenly, the short one grabbed Solomon's arm, hard, unnecessary, a power move, an insult. The photo slipped from Solomon's pocket, landed face down on the cold tile. Nobody bent to pick it up. The tall one leaned in closer and whispered, low and sharp, "Go to the back, where you belong." Time stopped. A child froze mid-bite. A mother paused, her hand halfway to adjusting her daughter's dress. Still, Solomon didn't move, didn't shove, didn't speak. He simply bent down, picked up the photo, turned it over, smoothed the creased edge with care. And when he looked up, his eyes weren't angry. They were steady, unshaken, sharp as steel. An unspoken message burned behind that gaze. "I fought for your right to stand here today. I don't need your permission to sit beside my son." One SEAL took off his jacket, revealing the unmistakable tattoo, a winged skull, bold across his arm. 6 men stood, no words, no signal, just presence, like an invisible unit coming back to formation. All eyes turned. But no one truly understood what was happening. Not yet. People exchanged glances. Whispers swelled like a tide moving through the crowd. What's going on? Why are they kicking him out? He's a Marine, isn't he? Solomon remained seated, head bowed, arms wrapped around the photo he had picked up, still as bronze. But everything around him had shifted. Then, the first man rose, calm, deliberate, no words. A tall man in a black dress shirt, salt and pepper hair, second row, aisle seat. He removed his coat, and there it was, the winged skull of SEAL Team, inked bold on his forearm. No introduction needed, no explanation. He just stared, right at the security guard who had grabbed Solomon. Then the second man stood, far left side. Then the third, way in the back row. Then the fourth, from the upper balcony. Then the fifth, then the sixth. No one gave a command, but they moved as one. No uniforms, no weapons, just eyes and history, and a silent promise that said, "You don't touch one of ours." The room froze. No more applause, no more cheers. Even the graduation music stuttered, as if someone had yanked the needle off the record mid-anthem. The spotlight, which had been trained on the stage, suddenly shifted. It found row 3, left side, and stopped. There he sat, a father holding a photograph like a lifeline, and behind him, 6 men stood still as stone. A wall, unshakable, unapologetic. One SEAL raised his hand and pointed straight at the guard, his eyes cold as a blade. The radio hit the ground. They didn't know who they were dealing with. Garvin, the shorter guard, turned to face the 6 men standing across the aisle. His face flushed red. His hand hovered near his shoulder mic. But it no longer meant protection. It was just a prop, a useless one. Then one of the SEALs stepped forward, tall, solid, like a steel beam in human form. He lifted his arm, pointed directly at Garvin. No words, just that stare, sharper than a drawn knife, steadier than any threat. Garvin blinked, stepped back, half a pace. The radio slid off his shoulder and hit the floor. Clack, loud enough to slice through the tension like a gunshot. Then came Creed. He didn't rush. He didn't need to. Authority didn't need volume. It walked with him. He stopped just short of the 2 guards. His voice was low, controlled, but every syllable landed like a gavel. The moment you laid hands on him, you lost control. Right now you're not humiliating him. You're humiliating yourselves. Garvin opened his mouth, then closed it. His lips trembled, desperate to form an apology he couldn't get out. Sweat trickled down his neck. His hand shook as he reached down to pick up the fallen radio, only to drop it again. Up on stage, the principal turned pale. She stepped up to the mic, voice strained, trying to reassert order. Please, everyone, please stay calm. We're handling it." But it was too late. She was no longer the center of the room. No one on stage was. Every pair of eyes, hundreds of them, were now fixed on one man. Still seated, still holding a photograph. Solomon. Sitting there like a warrior, trained to live inside storms, unmoved, unshaken. He didn't speak. He didn't rise. He didn't need to, because power had already shifted, and it now belonged to those who never had to prove a thing. When truth becomes undeniable, silence is no longer an option, and the light of honor must find its rightful place. Tyron Drayton stood in line with the graduating class. His grip tightened around the diploma he had just received, but his eyes never left his father. Not for a second. He had seen it all. The moment they grabbed his father's arm, his dad's silence, and the room tipping on its axis. A single tear slipped down Tyron's cheek, not from weakness, but from the weight of realization. For the first time in his life, he understood. Stillness is strength, and his father never lifted his head to be seen. He lived in a way that made others bow theirs. Tyron stood. His graduation robe rippled slightly as he rose, mid-row, mid-moment. One hand still held the diploma. The other formed a fist, not in anger, in pride. He looked at his father and whispered, "I'll live in a way that honors you." Then, a single clap echoed through the auditorium. Then another, and then hundreds, bursting like thunder. People stood, row after row. No one told them to. "We're sorry. You deserve respect. Thank you for teaching us what honor looks like." The spotlight, as if moved by something greater than programming, slowly turned. It landed on Tyron. He didn't step back, didn't cover his face. He stood there, centered in a sea of caps and gowns, eyes locked on the man who never demanded recognition, but had always deserved it. And in that moment, one generation passed down dignity to the next, not through a speech, not through a medal, but through a look, a rise, and a silent vow. "I will live like you lived." Solomon saw himself dragging Creed out of the kill zone, blood pouring down the younger man's leg, as Creed screamed, "You're bleeding too!" Red dust, black smoke, blood mixed with sand. Kandahar, 15 years ago. The convoy was ambushed at noon, halfway up a sun-scorched ridge road. The IED hit first, a bone-rattling explosion. The lead Humvee was launched into the air like a tin can. Then came the bullets, precise, Cold, merciless, no warning, no time. Solomon, then a gunnery sergeant, didn't wait for orders. He broke cover, sprinting through open fire, one hand on his rifle, the other, pulling wounded men out of the wreckage one by one. Creed, a rookie with barely 3 months in country, had taken a hit to the thigh. He was dragging another soldier behind a burning axle, teeth clenched. "You're bleeding, man," Creed gasped. Solomon didn't stop, didn't even answer. He grabbed the shoulder of an unconscious Marine and pulled. "I don't leave anyone behind," he roared, his voice cutting through gunfire like thunder over a desert storm. When the dust finally settled, when the last round was fired, when they counted the living, there were 6. 6 men who never looked at the world the same way again. They didn't become friends. They became bonded. For life. Back to the present. In the auditorium, Creed, now graying, his body heavier, his eyes sharper, nodded once. Toward Solomon. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Just a nod, and a promise that never expired. One of the SEALs beside him placed a hand over his chest. Over the badge. It wasn't a salute. It was a signal, a vow, unspoken, still intact. 15 years, one ocean apart, and nothing had changed. Never underestimate the man who sits in silence. He might be the strongest person you'll ever meet. Tyron ran to his father and threw his arms around him. His diploma slipped from his hands and hit the ground. "I'm proud of you, Dad." The graduation was over. Crowds poured out of the auditorium like a tidal wave. Laughter and goodbyes, swallowing the last notes of the farewell music still playing from the speakers. Red and black gowns swirled together in the golden dusk. The air was full of voices and celebration. But in one quiet corner of the courtyard, near the emergency exit, a moment was waiting to happen. Solomon stepped out, unhurried, like the world had slowed down inside him, like nothing outside could rush him anymore. He still held the photo, creased now, with a new wrinkle from earlier, but he kept it close, always close. Tyron stood in the open, cap gone, gown fluttering, clutching his diploma like it held the whole day together. Then he saw his father, and just like that, he let go of everything. The friends, the cheers, the congratulations. He let it all fall behind, and he ran. He wrapped his arms around Solomon with everything in him. Tight, fierce, no hesitation. The diploma slipped from his hand, landing sideways on the hot cement. But no one looked down. It didn't matter. "I'm proud of you, Dad," Tyron said, voice thick with emotion. "I wanted to run down. When they grabbed you, I wanted to fight. But I knew you wouldn't want me to." Solomon looked at his son, and for the first time that day, he smiled. Not the smile of victory, but the quiet kind, the kind that says, You got it. The right thing, Tyron. You understand. Honor doesn't need to be shouted to be seen." The sunlight poured through the glass doors behind them, casting golden streaks across Solomon's uniform and Tyron's face. And in that light, they stood. One man who had survived war. One young man just stepping into the world, side by side, in stillness, in silence. No trophies, no spotlight, no loud applause, just presence, a father, a son, and a hug time could never erase. The streetlights reflected in Solomon's eyes, steady, unwavering, as if they held a whole lifetime of battles. The Dodge Charger rolled quietly out of the parking lot. No horn, no music, just the low, steady hum of the engine, like the calm breath of a man who'd lived through more than one kind of war. Inside the stillness of the car, Tyron sat in the passenger seat. In his hands, the photo, the one his father carried everywhere, from Kandahar to his mother's grave, to this day. He stared at it for a long time, didn't speak, didn't ask, just reflected. Solomon kept his eyes on the road. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Quiet, even. No pressure. Tyron looked up. "I'm thinking, if it were me, I would have stood up. I would have shouted, maybe even fought back. But you just sat there." Solomon nodded once. One breath. A pause. Then he spoke, soft but solid, like a truth carved in stone. "I didn't have to stand to prove who I am. My honor already spoke for me." Outside, streetlights passed one by one, casting lines of gold across the glass, and into Solomon's eyes. In those eyes, endurance, conviction, a lifetime of choosing the right side, even when no one clapped. Tyron looked down again at the photo. For the first time, he didn't see it as a keepsake. He saw it for what it truly was, a living legacy. You didn't yell, you didn't fight, but the entire room went silent because of you. Solomon didn't answer. He didn't need to, because some truths don't require explanation. And some people, they don't need to prove anything. Their presence is the proof. Some people scream to be noticed, but the strongest ones sit in silence, and their legacy echoes forever. The car turned onto the highway, leaving the school's lights fading into the rearview mirror. Above, the sky had deepened to a soft twilight purple, like a curtain gently falling at the end of a story. But inside the car, something had just begun. Tyron leaned back in his seat, still holding the photo, still quiet, letting the silence speak. Solomon drove with one hand, the other rested lightly on his thigh, as if steadying not just the car, but the invisible thread between two generations. At a red light, the Charger came to a halt. The signal glowed through the windshield, casting a quiet red glow across Solomon's sharp, weathered features. Tyron turned, studied his father, not just as a soldier, but as a man, strong enough to carry pain without collapsing, calm enough to make a room go silent without raising his voice. "Dad," Tyron said softly, "if one day I'm in a moment like yours, what should I do?" Solomon didn't smile, didn't turn away from the road. He answered with the clarity of a man who's lived it. "You don't need to win in their eyes. Just stand steady in your own." And that was enough. They rode on in silence. Outside, a breeze moved through the trees lining the highway, leaves rustling like a quiet applause. Applause not for victory, but for something done right. Some people yell to be seen, but the strongest ones, they just sit in silence, and their legacy never fades.